Hey guys, I'm April from Giggle Glitter Graphics, and today I'm assembling my Gothic Pocket Journal. There are 4 ways to use this journal. The first is a collection of spooky journal cards, each describing a different mysterious object. The second, a book log card with a Gothic vibe, perfect for documenting your last read. And finally, for artists and writers, I've included blank cards that you can use for collage work or journaling. Assembly is the same as my previous book pocket journal, so as a bonus today, I'll be showing you ways to add your own creative twist to this project. I'll be using supplies I found at the thrift store, but you can use anything you have on hand. For supplies today, you will need scissors and an optional paper trimmer to cut everything out, liquid glue and an optional glue stick. I like Beacon Fabri-Tac and Uhu for my glue stick, a bookbinding kit or substitutes for bookbinding thread, a needle with a large eye, and a pokey tool. I will be using a substitute for my waxed binding thread today, and I'll get into that some more later. A bone folder is also handy. This should come with your bookbinding kit, but if you don't have one, you can use your thumbnail or the back of your scissors to firm up your creases. Optional items are black soot distress ink. I'm using this on the edges of everything today. I like how it looks and it goes with my dark, spooky, gothic vibe. And a scoreboard for all of the folds that we're going to do today. There are a bunch of tabs on the pockets, and this makes it a lot faster. Plus, it comes with a bone folder, so it's kind of a 2-for-1. Everything in this kit is printed on 110-pound cardstock. There are 4 sheets that have these pages printed on them. You will need to put backer paper 1 on the reverse side. So it will have this panel, and there are 4 pages. Each of these panels has another item on the page with it, and then just print the back with this textured paper, backer paper 1. I do mark all of the pages at the top if you need to put a backer paper on the reverse, so check for those instructions before cutting everything out. So let's go ahead and get started assembling this. I'm going to move all of my extra tags off to the side, and let's start with the cover panel. First thing I'm going to do is fold this over, and I used a little smudge of that black soot ink in each of the corners. This is just in case my corners don't meet up well and a little bit of that white shows through. So that's just a quick tip to make it a little more forgiving when you're folding these corners. So I'm going to go ahead, and there are 3 tabs at the top. I'm going to fold those down, 3 at the bottom, fold those, and then 1 on each side. Once you have those all creased really well, you can grab your liquid glue, and we're just going to put some of that right under where each tab will go. So I'm going to run all the way around here and place my glue under. Like so. And then I'm going to press all of these down. And this is going to give us a nice stiff edge to the edge of our book and make it hold up well, even though it's just made out of cardstock. And then I'm going to grab my bone folder and give this all a nice press. So now all of our tabs are glued down, and I'm going to put this off to the side to dry and go ahead and grab my 4 pages. They should all be identical, as well as the little spine piece. That's this piece here. And this is going to need to be creased right along the lines on either side of the panel with the holes. I did make these sides just a little darker, and the line runs right like that. And there is a reverse side to this with the other printed paper, so you can use this other side optionally. I'm going to work from the front, but then once your holes are punched, you can flip it over and use that as the side, the facing side that you would see. So going to fold those in. That way you have a little strip like that with the little wings on it. And we're going to get our pokey tool. As well as for me, I'm going to get this little scrap piece of cardboard. It's several pieces of cardboard sandwiched together. And I'm just going to go through and poke all of these white holes out. So just go with my tool and poke right down through to pre-punch those holes, so it's easier for me to thread everything together. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the white holes running down the middle of these pages. So these pages just fold right in half, give them a good crease with your bone folder. You just want to make sure those corners are met up really nicely so that you have a nice clean fold and things aren't a little bit wonky. And then poke those holes out right down the middle, and then repeat that for the other 3 pages. So now I have all 4 of my pages prepared, as well as this spine piece. And again, you can use either side of this spine piece, whatever side up that you want. And I'm going to grab my needle and my thread. So if you're using bookbinding thread, you can go ahead and grab that. I'm going to use something a little different today. So I have some threads that I got at the thrift store. One is kind of this ladder trim that looks like this. And I like that it had kind of that rosy reds and pinks in it, like some of the ephemera. And then this kind of an eyelash yarn. It's not as dense as some of them, but it's got these fun little tufts coming off of it with purple and gold threads, and it is black. And I'm going to use them to bind my journal. Now, I did give these a good tug before I picked them to make sure they weren't going to snap very easily. This should hold up really well, but if you're really concerned about long-term durability, then you might want to stick with this bookbinding thread. So I'm going to measure out my pieces of string. I'm going to grab one of my pages, and I've got the holes going this way. And I am going to double these up, especially this one. It is so fine. So if you were just doing a single width, not doubled up, you would just go 1, 2, 3, and then give that a trim. But because I want to double this, I'm going to do 6. There's another 3. And then just give that a little snip. And then I'm going to fold this over on itself so that it has a little more oomph to it. And then I'll go ahead and stick this through my needle. This is why you need the big-eyed needle, because it's a little easier to get things through that larger eye. Get this stuff out of the way. And now I'm going to get a page and my spine template. And there are 2 different ways you can do that. And because I'm using this interesting fiber, I'm going to go from the inside so that my tails are hanging out in the middle of my book. So when I tie this, the strings are going to come right out of the middle. All right, so I zoomed in here a little closer so you can get a better idea of exactly what I'm doing. So here's the inside of my page, the outside of my page folded. This is the spine template. I've got 4 rows of holes, and I'm going to start on the left side. If you're left-handed, you might want to start on the right side. It doesn't really matter which side you start on. Just work your way across with the pages. So I'm going to take my first page, and I'm going to poke right down through the middle of that. And I'm going to pull all the way until I have enough left to tie a knot. So I'm going to make sure I have some tails sticking out there. Then I'm going to grab my template, and I've got the center hole on the left, and I'm going to go down through that and pull this tight so that it sandwiches together. So there's no space between the 2 of those. Then I'm going to go, turn this over, to the top hole, which is going to be a little hard to see with this print. So right down through that top hole, and also through the top hole of my page. So I'm coming back through. Now I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom hole, through the bottom hole on the page, and the bottom, for me, most left hole. And make sure you stay in the same row. Don't jump rows by accident. And I'm going to bring that all the way down. I'm going to pull my string tight. Now I've got this crazy thread stuff going on, so I got to make sure that the strings are tight, but that frayed stuff is going to kind of go wild. That's the downside of a material like this. Now I'm back to the back. I've got a hold of the tail on the other side. I'm pulling it away from the hole nice and tight because you don't want your needle to go through your material. I'm going to go back through this hole and pull everything through. So now I have 2 tails. You want to make sure that one tail is on either side of that center string, and then tie a knot. So this material is pretty crazy to look at. So hopefully that all made sense to you and that I described it well. I'm going to finish tying my knot. Right over left, left over right. Try to make it as neat as I can despite this really fun frayed stuff. There we go. And then I will trim this. You can leave it as long as you like. I am going to trim mine. I'm going to find the in-between spaces between the little fuzzy bits and give that a snip. And I have something that looks like this. And I'm just going to repeat that process for the other 3 pages. All right, so now I have something that looks like this. We've got our little wings. All of our pages are in, and I have some fun fluff coming out of the bottom. And we're going to need to apply this to the inside of our journal. So the first thing we have to do is fold, and I've already scored along my spine here. Fold along the spine, grab your bone folder and give that a really good crease so that we have made a book shape like so. And then nest this right inside and see if it fits. Mine is a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to coax this a little bit smaller. I'm going to pull that fold towards me and kind of round it out just to make some space. Move that crease to the middle a little more. And then let's pop that in. And that is fitting much better. So I'm just going to flatten those wings out. This is going to line up top and bottom. I'm going to get my Beacon Fabri-Tac, my liquid glue, turn it so that I have the back side up, all those pretty fibers. I'm going to push all of the dangling bits down out of the way. We don't want to accidentally glue them. And I've got this one little hairy piece here. I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm just gluing on the tabs. I know everything is a little bit one color here, so it might be harder to see. I'm gluing on the 2 wings, and I'm not gluing on this back panel here. And then making sure you have it the direction you want it to go. There's not really much directionality to these pages, so you don't have to worry about that too much. I'm going to lay it in, line it up top and bottom, make sure my fibers are not caught under my wings. And then you want to make sure this is pushed in. So push it in, open it up, press down and smooth those tabs out. Make sure when you press down that this is open all the way. If you press them and then kind of close it, you're going to get a book that wants to pop open all the time. So go ahead and press those down while it's flat. Make sure that your fun floof is not in the glue. Double check, triple check, and then let that dry. Once this is dry enough that you don't have to worry about it moving around and everything looks good, this will pop up just a little bit. It's supposed to, just like a book spine. We're going to go to the front inside cover, and we have a panel for each inside cover. They're identical. They're just going to cover up here, and this is a second opportunity for you to kind of personalize this. So I'm actually going to grab some eyelash yarn in black, also picked up at the thrift store, or you could use something like lace if you want to. This one was a little wider than I'd like for this book to use as a tie. So I thought the eyelash yarn would be really pretty. The length really depends on what you want to do with it. I'm going to put some on either side so that it can be tied together. So, and I think I'm going to double it so it's nice and floofy. And I want enough that I can tie. I can always shorten it, but I can't make it bigger once I've glued it in. So this is, let's see here. All right, I got a ruler, and so this is doubled over, and the length is about 12 inches. So it's just a hair longer. So if you even if you just have a single piece of lace, about 12 inches, that should be enough to tie a bow, and you can trim it up. So I'm going to take this material and put a little glue in the center, kind of eyeballing the center here. You can measure and make it exact. And I'm just going to squish that into the glue. And then I'm going to grab my panel, and you can use either side of it. This is the side with this kind of centered detail. That's the side that I designed to go up, but if you like the slightly more chaotic printed background, by all means use that. And you can use your glue stick if you're not putting any kind of fabric or anything under this, but the Fabri-Tac is great for this application. So I'm just going to put a good coating of Fabri-Tac on there and then place this down right over top. And I'm gonna center that on the inside cover. Straighten that up. Give this a good smush. Lock everything in there. Make sure it's all down. And then check the fold. So now we have this. Let's go to the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. So I've got another piece of my eyelash yarn, and I'll just put that blob of glue down so I can stick that in. And then I'll glue my panel on. So now I have something that looks like this, and once it's dry, I can tie these together, make a bow, and keep my journal shut. Now we're ready to apply the pockets to the inside cover. There are 2 tall pockets and 2 short pockets, and you can pick whichever ones you want to go in the inside front and inside back. So I'm going to go with these 2 for the front. And I'll go over the pockets really quickly. Every pocket in this kit has 3 tabs. You have 2 sides and a bottom. I recommend folding the sides in first and then folding up the bottom. That makes the pocket work a little better when you slide things down inside. This way, they're going to catch a little bit. So sides first, then bottom. I'm going to grab my glue, and I'm working on the inside cover. I'm just going to glue these tabs thoroughly. And place that right on the inside front cover. And then I'm going to repeat that for the shorter pocket, sides and then bottom. There we go. And then flip to the back and repeat that for the other 2 pockets. So now I've got both of mine attached there. And we need to put all the rest of the pockets in. So there are 2 types of pockets. There are these tall pockets with a top opening and side pockets, left and right facing, that all have a side opening. So the first thing I recommend doing is going through and making sure that you've picked out 4 pockets that you want to go to the right, because some of the prints, there's a couple that are directional, mostly these 2. And then 4 that go the other way. Now you can mix these up, you can put them any direction you want. Just make sure that when you attach these side facing pockets, they go off the page and not into the page, because then it's hard to get things in and out. So you want these to face off the page, outside of the book. So here I've got 4 left, 4 right, and there are 8 top loading. I'm going to start with a top loading. You can do them however you like. And I'm going to place my first one on this page. Same thing with the tabs. And I'm just going to do a couple of these with you really quickly. I like to alternate these, and I also like the inside and outside, the side facing pockets. There we go. I also like the side facing pockets to be on the pages with the strings. They seem to work, they'll work better. They'll give your strings some room, especially if you've used some fibers. So I'm opening this up. I've got these fibers inside. I'm going to try to push everything to the side. I'm going to have to weigh that down with something. Here, I've got my little dragon guy there. I'll use him. And I'm going to use the butterflies. I'm going to place this pocket here, facing outward. And for these side pockets, or for this area here, the reason I like these here is you can leave room in the middle. Instead of having the pockets jammed right up into the crease, you can give it just a little breathing room. go. Flip my strings over and weight them out of the way and grab another side pocket and do the same thing. So this is just my preferred placement of the pockets. Side pockets on the inside of these pages and then the tall pockets on the outside, if that makes sense. There we go. Then I'll turn the page and place one of these tall top loading pockets on the outside. And I'm going to repeat that through the entire journal. All right, so I have all of my pockets in. Let's do a quick flip through so you can see what that looks like for me. Yours might look a little different, but here they are. Nice. All right. So I had a little hiccup with my video footage, and I did also put this label onto the side. So I have one that says Gothic Pocket Journal. There is little bits of fuzz everywhere. I've got a decorative one and then a plain one that you can put whatever you want on. So I just glued that right onto the spine just to finish that off. And I need a little distress ink on there, but I'll get to that later. And I'm just going to open this up. I felt like I have fiber down here, I have my ties here, and I did knot these together at the ends just to kind of finish them off so they weren't quite so dangly. And there's nothing going on at the top whenever this is closed. So I wanted a little peekaboo lace at the top. I'm going to go ahead and glue in some little strips of lace just so they peek over the top of the book. And I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac to do that. And it's just going to take a small amount. I'm just going to kind of make sure that there's a nice line across the top. I don't want to use too much, just enough to stick it. And then a little squiggle to hold it in. And this stuff dries pretty clear, so you shouldn't really be able to see it. I've pre-cut these pieces so that they'll fit. And I'm going to do another one at the back. So I have a second piece, and I know we're very black on black today. I considered changing my background, but I'm a little attached to the black background, so I'm going to leave that be. And there's my other piece of lace. And I want to make sure that I don't close this all the way so that my pages don't get stuck in there. So after all of my pockets were completely dry, I did grab my bone folder and go through and make sure that there was no glue holding these shut, that these were all free to put things down into. Sometimes those tabs, the glue will seep out, it'll stick to the face of the pocket and glue your pocket shut. And then you try to put something in there and it just doesn't work. So I went through the entire thing and freed those up. And now I'm ready to embellish. I have two kinds of embellishments. I've got these tall kind of tags and then these shorter tags that look like this. The shorter tags work really well on the top loading pockets, and then the tall bookmark type tags work well on the side loading pockets. So you can go through and attach these to all of the pockets as a decoration, or you can use them as tags inside of the pockets. In that case, the shorter ones work better in the side loading pockets, and then the taller ones work better in the top loading pockets. So you can see if you try to put the shorter ones in here, they're going to slide in and disappear. So I don't recommend that. So you can decide what you want to do. I am going to go ahead and attach all of these throughout the journal because I do like how that looks. So all I'm going to do, I'm using my Fabri-Tac, but a glue stick would work really, really well for this. And I'm just going to do a scribble there and pop it right into place. And I'm going to do that for all of these tags on all of the pockets, except for the ones in the front and back covers. So I have all my embellishments in, and this is what it looks like. I feel like it's really coming together now with all of the fibers I added and then the decorations inside of the journal, picking up those same colors. And I'm really happy with this. And now I just have to decide what I'm going to put in my pockets. So my first choice is all of these cards with my mysterious, gothic, creepy, spooky objects on them. They all have descriptions. So there are enough of these to fill every pocket plus one in this journal. So there'll be an extra piece. Then there is the book card, so the book log card. These just get folded in half like this. And then you can glue the back sides together to make a double-sided card and keep a record of what books you're reading. So you can fill that out. And finally, we have the blank cards. There are 3 different ones. I seem to have misplaced my other. There it is. So the corner decorations are a little different on each one. Otherwise, they are the same. So you can write on these or you can collage on them. So obviously, writing on them is just with a pen. And I'll give you a quick example of some collage work you could do. So I have a couple pieces of this kind of fiber paper, mulberry paper. It has all these threads in it. This is a red color that I thought would go really well with my journal. And I think I'm going to stick a couple pieces of this on. And now I'm being forced to use my glue stick. It's the perfect tool for this. Don't often grab it, but can't argue with this. So I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. I'm just making this up as I go, so we'll see how it comes out. But I'm just going to use the card as a base and get some of this mulberry paper on here. And then it might be nice. This has actual petals inside of it. So I thought a piece of this might be nice on top. Let's make that a little smaller. Something like that, but it's too white. So I'm gonna grab my Distress ink. This has that black soot on it. It's all loaded up with that black ink. And I'm just gonna kind of give that a little bit of a distressing. And then this one, normally if I were going to do this as on a page, I think I would use my Fabri-Tac, but since this is going to go into a pocket and we don't want things to catch, I should glue this down really well. So I'm just going to glue right over that and stick this down. And then I've got this aged mahogany ink. I use this for Crown of Roses. Obviously it wasn't on our list for today. I didn't know I was going to use it until just now. And I've got this rose stamp, and let's see how this comes out. If I can just place that right in the center. There. So we've got a little paper layered up, a nice stamp. And I've decided I'd like to do a couple more stamps, but this time in the black ink. So I've got this little key, and I'm just going to ink that up. And I think let's put that up here. It's a little dark, but I wanted it to be dark and moody. And then this candelabra, we'll see how this comes out. But you get the idea. I'm just kind of building up some layers, filling the space, making it dark and moody. And then I think we could use one more thing on here, but we need it to be a little more bold. This is a frame stamp. And if I remember, I will try to link all these stamps in down below, or make a little Amazon list of all my favorite stamps, something like that. Now I'm just using another card because that's what I have in front of me. Otherwise I might grab a sheet of paper or something like that. And I'm going to stamp this on here. And that is really pretty. And then I'm going to grab my scissors and just kind of fussy cut around this. I'm not going to spend forever in the interest of all of our time. If I were doing this by myself, I would spend a little extra time. So I'm just going to cut around this, not smudge my ink. There we go. And then I'm just going to put a little glue on the back of that. So now I can write something in there. and maybe add something else to the top of this, maybe a piece of lace or something like that. But you kind of get the idea. I'm building kind of moody layers, creating something from scratch. And then once this is all dry, I can slide it into one of my pockets. So hopefully I have given you some good ideas today on not only how to build this particular journal kit, but also how to bring some life to this one and maybe even the book pocket journal if you have purchased that one already. Again, there are links to this project kit in the description down below. Thank you so much for crafting with me, and I will see you in the next one.